Okay, we'll be starting in 2 minutes. Thanks. Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the public agenda, the Regional Police Service Board meeting for January 25th. Roll call, declarations of conflict or pecuniary interest. I see none. Now I switch over to Deb for the election of chair and vice chair. Thank you, Deb.
Thank you and good morning. I'd like to begin the election process and at this time call for nominations for the position of chair. Member Ganzel.
Good morning, and I would like to nominate Member Bob Gale for chair.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for the nomination? Thank you, Member Barrick. Member Gale, do you agree to let your name stand?
Yes, thank you.
Thanks. Are there any further nominations for the position of chair? Seeing none, can I have a motion to close the nominations? Moved by Member Caslin, seconded by Member Ganzel. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Congratulations, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. You're going to continue on? Thank you.
I'd now like to continue with the election of the vice chair and open the floor for nominations. Member Barrick?
I'd like to nominate Member Gansel for vice chair.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for the nomination? Thank you, Member Caslin. Member Ganzel, do you agree to let your name stand?
Yes, I will.
Thank you. Any further nominations? Seeing none, can I have a motion to close the nominations? Moved by Member Bonham, seconded by Member Barrick. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. The nominations are now closed. Could I now have a motion to elect Member Ganzel as Vice Chair for the Police Services Board for the year 2018? Member Stewart, seconded by Member Bonham. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. That concludes the election process, and I'll turn the meeting back over to you, Chair Gale.
Boy, Deb, when you made the mention about 5 minutes of fame, it was 5 minutes, maybe not even that. I thought it'd be a bit longer. Thank you. So I'd first like to thank my fellow board members for my re-election as chair of this board. It's my honor and privilege to continue serving in this capacity. I have enjoyed working with each of you throughout the past year, and I look forward to another challenging and rewarding year in 2018. I particularly appreciate the varied expertise that each of you brings to our deliberations, as well as your significant time commitments which are required to deal with board business. 2017 was a busy and productive year. In addition to the regular board and committee agenda matters, the board finalized new collective agreements with each of the police associations through collective bargaining and arbitration. We finalized and approved the 2018 annual budget. In addition, we undertook crucial executive recruitment processes which resulted in the requirement of the recruitment and appointment of a new chief of police and 2 new deputy chiefs, as mandated by the Police Services Act. The recruitment processes have led to the appointment of an executive command team with over 87 years of policing experience. The chief and both deputies are proven and accomplished leaders and bring with them a wide range of operational, administrative, and strategic experience. Each is respected not only within our police service, but also in the broader Niagara community and beyond. Individually and collectively, they have demonstrated an ability to work through difficult issues with not only this board and members of our police service, but also with our local and provincial elected representatives. Each has proven to be collaborative, and each recognizes the benefits of consensus building where possible and of community engagement. For example, the service has enhanced community engagement with the new Coffee with a Cop program being held across the Niagara region. This initiative was started to provide local residents with an opportunity to connect and share concerns with NRPS command staff. The service also began community engagement sessions to provide members of the public an opportunity to address local community concerns and discuss crime prevention tips, community safety issues, local crime trends, and policing services that are available to the community. Initiatives such as these go hand in hand with comments provided by our local mayors, councillors, and citizens who are encouraged to see the significant level of police connection in their communities. They notice it, Chief. They've complimented you through me, and I pass that compliment along. I am confident that the Chief and his executive command team will continue to mitigate annual budget pressures by identifying efficiencies and opportunities for cost savings. I am confident that they will address the ever-changing operational and administrative needs of the service, and I am confident that they will work diligently to meet community expectations and that they will work towards the development of a service delivery model that is aligned with the business plan, Police Services Act, and the region's strategic priorities. The Central Records Unit, under the direction of the Chief, has already streamlined the background record checks process to minimize wait times. Now, if so desired, a citizen can attend at police headquarters here and get a vulnerable sector police record check while they wait. This can only help our students and others who need this for employment right away. The board will achieve a net savings of approximately $200,000, resulting from a front desk staffing change instituted by the Chief. This will result in the redeployment of 8 uniformed officers to the front line. These 8 officers, coupled with 8 additional frontline officers approved for hire in the 2018 budget process, will greatly assist in reducing overtime and in increasing police visibility in each of our Niagara communities. In fact, the service has estimated overtime savings of approximately $600,000 for 2018 and every year beyond. I'm proud of this board and the executive command staff who made every effort to mitigate budget pressures for 2018 while being mindful and responsible to fiscal pressures. In doing so, we have established a police budget that is transparent, accountable, and respectful of every tax dollar provided by our citizens of the region. I hope that the community can appreciate and understand that there is much discussion and consultation before the board makes a decision on every matter, and every time the betterment of our community, the public, the NRPS police officers, everyone who we represent is considered. I'm proud of this. 2018 will be a year of transition for the service as you, Chief McCullough, with your executive command team, work to meet the high expectations of the board and the public to ensure that the Niagara Regional Police Service continues to provide the highest quality of police services to the residents of Niagara and to achieve the highest standards of accountability and excellence in all aspects of policing in the Niagara region. But as we all know, there are significant challenges on the horizon. Upgrading equipment and technology is a constant challenge that needs to be addressed on an ongoing basis in order to ensure that our officers have current investigative tools and that our management and support staff have the necessary management, administrative, supervisory tools. The service will also need to move forward with the design of the #1 district building that will meet the funding envelope for the project, and I hope Vice Chair Ganzel expands on that. Both the board and service are in the midst of dealing with unprecedented and far-reaching legislative changes in how police services are delivered in Ontario and how boards are to meet their oversight obligation. The recently introduced the Safer Ontario Act is the first major rewrite of the Police Service Act in almost 30 years. These are just a few examples of the difficult changes that lie ahead and of the difficult decisions the board will face in the coming year. In dealing with these challenges and others, my job as board chair will be to ensure we ask the right questions, that we have the right facts, that we consider all options and viewpoints of service management and of individual board members. and that the board engage in the discussions and debates necessary to tackle those challenges effectively. Both the board and I have the utmost confidence in you, Chief McCullough, in you, Deputy Chief Forty, in you, Deputy Chief Flynn, and your entire senior management team, that we will work together to meet all the challenges that lie ahead in 2008 and beyond. I also go a step further and include Deb and Don from the police board offices. You have our utmost confidence, and I thank you for what you've done in the past. And I noticed you didn't put it down here for me, so I added that in. We all look forward to a positive and rewarding 2018. Thank you very much. Thanks. Now to Vice Chair Ganzel. Do you have a few words to say?
Yes, I do, and thank you very much, Chair Gale. Before I start, I can only echo what the chair has put in his remarks. Reflects very well on where this police service is moving to, and our support of the community we serve is, I think, vital to our success. I would like to thank my fellow board members for my re-election as vice chair to the board. It is my honor as well and privilege to continue to serve in this capacity as vice chair for the coming year, and I thank you for your support. But I need to emphasize the importance of the board working as a team. I would like to highlight some of the many challenges we as a board and service will face in 2018. As I chair two subcommittees of the board, Building and Facilities and Technology, I will talk about the building and facilities area first. It is imperative that the #1 district building in St. Catharines move forward with construction as quickly as possible. And I echo the comments made by the chair in that area. I will continue to work with the region and the service to make this happen for a much overdue facility in St. Catharines. I look forward to a groundbreaking now sometime in mid to late summer. As technology, which is another committee that I chair, policing in general has moved to rely on technology to solve and fight criminal activity in our region. The introduction of the automatic license plate recognition scanning vehicle shows how this technology can be used to best purpose. We've already had a success, and probably more than I was aware of, but I know one vehicle was stopped as a result of that device. There are a number of initiatives moving forward this year, and I will talk very briefly on those: the Real-Time Operations Center, the expansion of our P25 voice radio system to include partner agencies, using business intelligence to drive police operations, intelligence-led policing, daily reporting improvements, and more technology in use by our field officers. The board and the service has a lot of work ahead in 2018, but under the leadership of Chief McCullough, Deputy Chiefs Forty and Flynn, and the senior management team of the service, we will work together to get the job done. And I will end my comments with my slogan that I've now started to use, which refers to #1 district: let's get this built. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. So now we move on. The minutes of the previous meeting, I'd like to move in a block if we can. Item #1 and 2. Can I have a mover, please? Member Caslin, seconded by Member Bonham. Any comments or questions on the minutes? All those in favor? Carried. Reports from the board chairperson. Again, as I do every time, I'd like to remind everyone that this meeting is being live streamed and will be posted to the board's YouTube channel following the meeting. So first, the OAPSB Zone 4 meeting. On January 9th, Member Stewart, the board's executive director, and I attended the OAPSB Zone 4 meeting hosted by the Niagara Regional Police Service here in the community room. The meeting included a presentation on the rising concerns associated with the sexual exploitation of children on the internet, as well as updates from the Ministry of Community Safety and Correctional Services on various policing issues that are being dealt with across the province. Member Stewart, do you have any comments on this? Okay. Second, the Chiefs Gala for Pro-Action Cops and Kids and Victim Services Niagara. On January 19th, Pro-Action Cops and Kids and Victim Services Niagara hosted the Niagara Region's Chiefs Gala at the Crown Plaza Hotel in Niagara Falls. The event provided an opportunity to celebrate and recognize the work of our local police officers, as well as raise funds to support the vital community services provided by Victim Services and Pro-Action Cops and Kids in Niagara. Vice Chair Ganzel, Member Stewart, the board's executive director, and I attended the event on behalf of the board. Then the CAPG webinar. On January 24th, the board and service participated in the CAPG, Canadian Association of Police Governance webinar session on politics and police governance, relationship challenges between the city and the board. The webinars are offered on a monthly basis as an educational resource to keep boards and police executives apprised of the issues currently impacting the police community. Upcoming PSB meetings. The next board committee meeting is scheduled to be held on Thursday, February 8th, and the regular monthly board meeting will be held on Thursday, February 23rd. Both meetings start at 8:30 here. And before I conclude my comments, I have an important announcement to make. I'd like to advise everyone that the board, with the consent of former Niagara Regional Police Chief Jeff McGuire, is publicly releasing a copy of his retirement agreement, as well as the original employment contract and amending agreements to that employment contract. The board has received a Freedom of Information request for these documents. In keeping with both the letter and the spirit of the Freedom of Information legislation, and rather than releasing them solely to the requester, the board and the former chief have agreed that the public release of the documents is preferable. Accordingly, the documentations will be posted on the Police Service Board's webpage at www.niagarapolice.ca within the next few days under the Newsletters and Releases section. The retirement agreement arose out of the former chief's employment with the board. The agreement contains, among other things, a confidentiality term, which was waived by both the former chief and the board for the purpose of the public release of the documents. The board intends to honor all terms of the agreement and will make no further comment. And thank you for that. Next, reports of the Chief of Police.
Thanks very much, Chair Gale, and I want to extend congratulations to you on your re-election as Chair, and Vice Chair Ganzel on your re-election. I can tell you that from the command team and our entire senior management team, we look forward to working with you in your roles and the entire board for that matter. I want to thank you for your kind words and your support that you've shown since the new command team has been put in place. And indeed, that carries over to the entire senior management team. We thank you for that. I can tell you from my perspective and from Deputy Flynn and Deputy Forey's perspective, we feel very fortunate to have such a dedicated team of professionals here at the NRPS who are committed to enhancing public safety each and every day for the citizens and visitors to Niagara. We recognize that there are many challenges ahead, but we are committed to continuous improvement and to working collaboratively with the board, with the region, with the NRPA, the Niagara Region Police Association, with the Senior Officers Association, our community partners and all stakeholders to deliver the highest quality of policing to our community. That said, we hire from the human race, and we're not perfect, but we are committed to learn from our mistakes and to learn from our successes. So we welcome any feedback that anybody can provide in assisting us in delivering a higher quality of policing to our community. That's the purpose of our community engagement. We want to hear what we're doing right, and we want to hear what we're doing wrong so that again, we can have that continuous improvement. So thanks again for your support. I'll get on with my my verbals. In 2017, the year end, as far as the marijuana seizures, we had $18,403,000 worth of illegal marijuana that was seized. As far as homicides, in 2017, we had 3 homicides. Comparatively, we had 1 homicide in 2016, 6 homicides in 2015, and 3 homicides in 2014. As far as robberies for the month of December, we had 16 robberies in the month of December. We traditionally see a bit of a spike in the month of December of robberies. Of those 16 robberies, 7 of those have been cleared, 6 remain under investigation, and 3 of those were in fact unfounded. So that represents a 44% clearance rate. As far as total number of fatal collisions that occurred in 2017, we had 18 fatal collisions in 2017 with a total combined deaths of 18. Comparatively, in 2016, we had 20. In 2015, we had 17. And in 2014, we had 18, and in 2013, we had 22. So years ago, unfortunately, we were very high in the province as far as the number of traffic fatalities were concerned. We've had a concerted effort by our frontline officers and specifically our traffic enforcement unit to try and reduce the number of fatalities through a combined effort of education and enforcement. So we've brought those numbers down from that were in the 30s previously, and we've been holding steady at the number of around 18 for several years now. So we're quite pleased with that number. In 2017 as well, we had only 8 life-threatening injury collisions. And previously, we had, in 2016, we had 24, and in 2015, we had 21. Talk about some things that were in the news. So on Tuesday, December the 5th, 2017, at approximately 10:10 a.m., the Niagara Regional Police responded to a report of a single vehicle motor vehicle collision on Brookfield Road near 2nd Concession in the city of Port Colborne. Investigation revealed that a 2014 Hyundai Genesis was being driven southbound on Brookfield Road by a 19-year-old male at a high rate of speed. Driver lost control of the vehicle, left the roadway, and struck a tree. Another driver in the area contacted 911. Unfortunately, the driver suffered fatal injuries and was pronounced at the scene. And that collision remains under investigation by the coroner's office and detectives from our collision reconstruction unit. On Friday, December the 1st, at approximately 3:55 p.m., we attended at Welland Avenue and Grantham Avenue in the city of St. Catharines in regards to a personal injury motor vehicle collision. Information was received that a male had fallen off of his motorcycle and was struck by an oncoming vehicle. The investigation revealed that there had been a previous motor vehicle collision that caused a fluid spill on the otherwise dry roadway of Welland Avenue. Shortly after the collision, a male rider on a 1991 Kawasaki motorcycle was riding westbound on Welland Avenue, drove through the fluid spill and lost control of the motorcycle. The rider came off of the motorcycle and was unable to stay on his feet, and he was ran into a 2009 GMC Sierra pickup truck. Fire EMS attended the scene and provided first aid to the motorcycle rider. The rider was transported to the NHS by ambulance, where it was learned that he suffered a crushed pelvis, severe head trauma, along with severe facial injuries. He was listed in critical condition and transported to Hamilton. The forensics unit, the collision reconstruction unit attended, and the investigation continues. We had a drug arrest in St. Catharines. And since November of 2017, members of the St. Catharines Street Crime Unit have been investigating 2 males in the Toronto area who are actively selling drugs throughout the Niagara region. These males, who are currently wanted parties with both the Niagara Regional Police and Peel Regional Police. On December the 19th, police conducted surveillance of these males and arresting 2 25-year-old males in the parking lot of the Penn Centre. In total, police seized a quantity of heroin, fentanyl powder, cocaine, and crack cocaine, which held a street value of $3,000, and seized a quantity of Canadian currency totaling $1,200. In July of 2017, members of the community in the Niagara region rallied to support English and adventure cyclist Ben Watts. Ben had been the victim of a theft of his bicycle and other belongings when passing through the Niagara region. At the time of the theft, Ben was during a cycling tour going across Canada and the United States. There was an investigation that was commenced by our 2 district officers, and on August 9th, detectives from our street crime unit were able to locate and recover Ben's stolen bicycle. The recovery, unfortunately, did not lead to an arrest, but we did recover the bike. And on December 20th, at Ben's request, the recovered bicycle was released to Niagara Falls resident Sue Gabrielli. Gabrielli and her family had assisted Ben in trying to locate the bicycle and assisted him greatly after the theft had occurred. During the month of October, a residential break-and-enter occurred in the area of Gorham Road and Hershey Street in Fort Erie. During the break-in, 6 firearms and a quantity of ammunition were stolen. As a result of that investigation, on December 21st, an 18-year-old Fort Erie male was charged with the offense of break-enter commit theft. Detectives from 5 District continue to work on locating the firearms and the ammunition. A 34-year-old male is facing charges after shots were fired at a home in the city of Niagara Falls. Incident occurred on November 24th in the area of 2nd Avenue and Morrison Street at approximately 10 p.m. No one was physically injured in the incident, but following a lengthy investigation by the 2 District Criminal Investigation Branch, a suspect was identified. And on December 21st, a 34-year-old male was charged with discharging a firearm with reckless intent, unauthorized possession of a firearm, unauthorized possession of a firearm in a motor vehicle, and unauthorized possession of a prohibited weapon. On Thursday, December the 28th, Uniform Patrol in 8th District, which is Grimsby, responded to the rural address of Township of West Lincoln in regards to a break-and-enter in progress. The responding officers, in concert with our K-9 unit, headed into the area and quickly formed a perimeter. And as a result of their collective efforts, 3 males were arrested and have been charged accordingly. On December the 29th, we arrested a male following an investigation that commenced in July of 2017. Investigation began when a female victim called police to report that she had been drugged on 2 occasions by a male acquaintance. During that investigation, officers seized food and beverages, which were then tested and found to contain methamphetamine. And a 45-year-old male has subsequently been charged and arrested in that incident. On Friday, December the 29th, we conducted a traffic stop on a vehicle driving erratically on Page Street in St. Catharines. Further investigation resulted in the driver being arrested and found to be in possession of a large quantity of cocaine, crack cocaine, hashish, and marijuana. As a result, male was charged with 4 counts of possession for the purpose of trafficking, and a total value of almost $9,000 in drugs were seized. On Sunday, December the 31st, members of the Niagara Regional Police conducted ride checkpoints in the city of Welland and Niagara Falls. We're pleased to say that officers observed a high number of designated drivers and taxi cabs that were shuttling people to and from New Year's Eve festivities. Only a couple drivers were required to provide samples of their breath for analysis, and all of these drivers received acceptable results and were free to drive away from the traffic stop. In addition to the roadside tests, officers issued several tickets, including one who was found to be operating a motor vehicle with no insurance. So that concludes the this year's or 2017's ride season. And officers conducted spot checks each week during the month of December and made 3 impaired driving arrests and issued double the amount of 3-day suspensions. And finally, on Tuesday, January the 2nd, members of the Niagara Falls Street Crime Unit arrested a male selling a custom-built Swiss-made BMC Impact bicycle worth more than $10,000. You'll recall I reported several months ago about a rash of thefts that were occurring in the Niagara Falls area. This one was a bicycle that was stolen in July. As a result of that investigation, a 27-year-old male from the city of Niagara Falls was arrested and charged with trafficking in the property obtained by crime, driving while under suspension, drive a motor vehicle with no currently validated permit, and fail to comply with a recognizance and fail to comply with a probation order. So that puts, I guess, a high point on what was a bit of a low point for us during all of those thefts that were occurring. As you recall, they were on bicycle racks that were left out in the hotel parking lots and whatnot. So good work by our street crime unit. That concludes my remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Does anybody have any questions for the Chief on his report? Okay, I have one comment, Chief. I want to thank you for ensuring that there was ride out on New Year's Eve. I know last year, because of strength and that, we didn't have it, and I was pleased to see that there were no arrests, and I get it. Most people know that there's going to be a ride on December 31st, so that's when anybody ensures they have a ride. It's when they don't expect it that I'm glad you have it more and that, so thank you for ensuring that. So to move on, no presentations, Deb? Okay, consent agenda items, if you don't mind, I'd like to move items 3 to number 12 in a block. Can I have a mover and seconder? Member Bonham, seconder. Member Stewart. Questions on any of the consent agenda items, please, like we normally do? Who wants to lead? Member Stewart.
Thank you, Chair, and through you to the Chief. I'm looking at report number 8 on the authorized strength. And I just making sure I understand some things correctly and a couple of questions here that under the uniform total, the actual 8 of the actual above, is that part of the 13 pre-hire positions? Looking at page 2 in the chart there, we have 714 actual, 706 authorized as the 8. And it says, I see 8 under recruit officers in training. Are those the pre-hires?
So we don't refer to them specifically as the pre-hires. So our authorized strength is 714. On top of that, we are allowed to have 13 pre-hires. The 8 right now are part of the 13 pre-hires. Would just like anything over the 706 is part of the 13 pre-hires, because the pre-hires could be fourth class constables. The way we budget is for them to be all throughout the different level, the different ranks. Right. So they aren't always, we don't always have 13 recruits. They could be different at different paces within the ranking, 4th, 3rd.
Right, okay, well, I certainly support having enough officers there to help reduce our overtime drivers. Under the civilian total, we seem to be quite a bit below. Is this causing us to deal with overtime issues, or is this just timing of replacements? We get some, I think we're 17 below what is authorized.
So as you recall, Member Stewart, we had a freeze on job postings for a while. So as a result of that, we haven't been able to fill those positions, and as a result, we've been relying on temporary employees, and in some cases that's augmented by overtime, but primarily through temporary employees.
Okay, and finally, for the 2018 budget, we had authorized an additional 8 people. Are they reflected in the authorized strength now?
Yes, they are. As of January 1, our authorized strength for uniform is 706.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Does anyone else have any questions on item number 8? Do you have any other items? Member Ganzel.
Excuse me. Thank you, Chair. These are, where is it here? It's on the report number 5. This deals with the special fund, and it is more of a curiosity question as to why we are sending the Ministry of the Attorney General $18,019.98. What was that for? It's sort of unusual that we send them. We're usually participating in grants.
It's money that we've obtained through the proceeds of crime that we have to send to the ministry. It's an in and out in the books.
So you just basically flow it through the special account. Okay, thank you.
Okay, if you're done with number 5, I'm going to ask a question on that if I can. Okay. Regarding number 5, you say an in and out. So we receive a check back from them? And I just want to make sure.
I'll refer to Lisa for the details.
Thank you. And where does it show up, Lisa, in our checks come in? Thanks.
So if you look on the last page of the report, you'll see that what they actually did was deposit the cash, and then they wrote a check out. So they get all this cash and we need to send it to them. So instead of flowing it through the region accounts, we actually have the bank account. We run this bank account here. So it's easier for us to put it into the bank account here and write a check out through this fund than to actually deposit into the region account and then get a check issued. So it's in and out, it doesn't show up on anybody's financial statements.
Perfect, thank you. Member Gansel, do you have any other items?
I do, if I may. It's item number 7, and that is the one from Brock University, the Campus Security Service. I did have a chance yesterday to speak to Donna Moody, who's the Director of Campus Security there. I found some of the statistics rather high, and that was my first sort of alert. There's two basically graphs there. The one that says Brock Campus Security Service versus the all sites. It's the first block of drawings, or I should say the scale. You'll note that the criminal offenses went from 38 in 2016 to 89 this year. So I thought that was a bit high, which drew my attention to it. The rationale behind that is it dealt basically dealing with marijuana and illegal drug use at the main campus. So I just couldn't figure out where that number was coming from.
That's the answer?
That's-
Because I have that as a question.
Yeah, that was the answer. So I did, it was very good conversation with Donna going over this report, and I thanked her for taking the time to update myself so I can inform the board. Thank you.
Okay, I had the exact same question as you just asked. So anybody else have any questions on the Brock University number 7? Go ahead, if you have any more.
This one is on number 9. This deals with the Professional Standards Unit, the quarterly report. Just a curiosity question. If you look on the table of average number of days to complete an investigation, under policy service complaints, we go from 54 up to 122 days. But then further down, under conduct complaints, we drop from 84 down to 45, almost half. I'm more alarmed with the increase from 54 to 122.
I'm going to refer to Superintendent Bench, who oversees professional standards. He can explain that for you.
Thank you, Chief, and through you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Gansel, I apologize. We may have cut off the last part of your question.
Oh, sorry. If you look on the public, the table, it talks about public complaints, the quarterly statistics. Underneath policy and service complaints, I'm looking at the second row down. It says average number of days to complete an investigation. 2016, it was 54 days. As of 2017, we're taking 122 days. Is it a staff shortage within the unit?
Thank you for the question, sir. I looked at that and it caught my attention, but I also noticed it's a relatively small sample size. So we're dealing with the one complaint. That complaint in and of itself may have been relatively simplistic compared to the other two that we're talking about in 2017. So if I were to bet, I would hedge my bets on the complexity of the case affected that, given the sample size. You also made reference to the conduct complaint section that you find below, and noted that in 2017, from the quarterly comparison, the average number of days to complete investigations has been reduced. You see the same when you go year to date. I had been told by Inspector Woods, who manages that particular unit, that I believe the formula that they used to calculate the days had been altered to give a more truer picture. There are certain investigations that count statistically, but they're either held by the OIPRD, so our investigators don't perform those, or no further investigation is required, so those outliers were removed. So it just affected the overall statistics and the analysis.
Okay, thank you. I mean, going forward, I think it's important that we try to, in the interest of working our way through these complaints as judiciously as possible, but also with a certain amount of timeliness in order to complete them relatively soon. That's all. That was my only, the statistic just looked a bit out number-wise.
Thank you, sir. The public service, or the investigation of the public complaint, that's monitored by the OIPRD, and they're subject to certain timeframes too. So there's significant oversight with respect to our performance there, and we do take that very seriously. And I can assure you they view it the same as you do.
Okay, thank you very much.
More comments on item 9?
Yep,
Member
thank you.
Castle?
Just wanted to note that it says year-to-date here, but it actually is the entire year, I would assume. Is that correct? Through you, Mr. Chair?
I would assume that too. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so thank you for that. And I just wanted to note, through you, Chair, that besides the average days to complete the investigation and unsubstantiated allegations, that the numbers look like they've dropped in almost all cases. So it's a good news story in making complaints less and less apparent to the service. So thank you.
Any other comments to that or no? Okay. Any other comments on item number 9? Member Bonham.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and through you. I just would comment on the average number of days as brought forward by Member Gansell. Year to date, 16 was 82 and 17 was 122. If that's due to some exceptional circumstances, perhaps in future years, there could be 2 numbers there, one an average excluding exceptionals and one including the exceptionals, so that the board would understand that there were a couple of so-called flies in the ointment that have significantly driven up the numbers inordinately, and that there truly might not be a genuine cause for some concern, just so we don't have a lot of banter going forward. Thanks.
We're good? Do you have comment or no? Okay. Any other comments on item number 9? Member Gansell, do you have anything else?
Just one comment on item number 3, which is the Brock and Niagara College Bursary Awards. I just wanted to basically publicly state how important I find these both institutions, both Brock and Niagara College, to our region as a whole. It's also a source of new hires for a number of businesses and regions and governments and that, so I fully support the bursary going forward.
Thank you, Ken, for that. Any other comments on item number 3? Chief, any comments on item number 3? And you're done? Any other comments on any of these? Member Caslin.
Thank you, Chair. The item number 6, on page 2, subject number 6, it talks about business name changes pending board approval. 3, specialty. Do we know what, is it possible to understand what the names of those businesses were?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So those business names come forward in a confidential report, and this is the report that's cleansed, and we don't provide the names in the public agenda.
Will I find them on this month's report?
I believe they would have come in last month's report.
Okay, thank you.
As you'll see, there's a report coming forward in the confidential report, and that will come forward next month in the public. It's the cycle of how it works.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
you're welcome.
Any other comments on item 6? Chair Caslin, do you have anything else? Thank you. Any other comments on any of these items? Member Bonham.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'd like to turn your attention to item number 4. That's the costs associated with policing the 2017 deer harvest at Short Hills Provincial Park. I just want to note that the costs this year have gone up. And the costs this year went up for two reasons. One, we had to do some training of our staff for future harvests and to ensure some depth and background. And the other reason the cost went up is because of increased activism by a few in the public that have driven up the costs of the many in the public, i.e. the taxpayers. And by the report, I'm noting that if everything is as presented, there were no actionable policing charges or infractions from those conducting a hunt. So just to emphasize, the actions of a few are driving up the costs of the many and not supported by actionable police charges. Thank you.
Chief, I'm going to add to that. After reading this report, I realize the best thing is to make no comment, because anything I say will offend somebody on this. But is there any plans, or is there anything we can look at? Because in the 4 years I've been chair, every year we come in, there's some little barber shop down there that's paying for this, or somebody working out there that's paying for this, and we're not solving anything. The costs are just going up on it, and it doesn't seem like anybody's any happier. I'm not blaming anybody here, don't get me wrong, but I'm not asking for an answer right now, but is there anything we can do to try and keep everybody happy? And I know in life it's hard to do that, but I'm looking for your opinions on this and the comments to what Member Bonham said.
It's a very polarizing event that occurs. Each side of the issue has a very emotional investment in what they are doing. There are treaty rights that are associated with it. We work with our partners, the OPP and the MNR, Ministry of Natural Resources, to try and be as cost effective as we can in order to respond to the incident, provide a safe environment for those for the harvesters as they're entering and exiting the park, but while still recognizing the rights of the individuals to be able to protest. So it's a very emotionally charged incident, and I don't see it going away anytime soon. In the future, I believe it's a year-to-year basis as to whether or not the ministry opens up the park for future hunts. I know that there's a very strong group of individuals who advocate for that to stop, but as long as it continues, we will be called upon in some fashion to provide a safe environment for that to occur, and we will, as always, be as cost-effective in doing so as we can.
Okay, Member Bonham hasn't got any other comments, but if we owned the property, meaning the region or the region of Niagara, and we were in charge, the MNR, the OPP weren't involved, would we do anything differently on it that you can think of? And I'm not trying to put you on the spot now. I'm just saying, is there anything we can suggest to them? Because we're the ones getting the flack. I can't believe the OPP are getting the flack because we're the ones that are out there, and the MNR might be, but we're the easy ones to get it. And we see the emails as from a regional level, the regional chair gets it, I get it, and we'll never solve this. And it probably went on for, you know yourself, has this gone on for the last 30 years or 20 years or what? I have no idea.
The harvest has been going on for about 5 years, and so it's not something that's been, and it's because of it's the population of the deer in the park that determines whether or not the MNR opens up the hunt or the harvest to the First Nations.
So I'm not trying to put you on the spot,
yeah.
But if down the way you can think of any way that we can solve this, if there's any way to cut down the amount of deer without having us go through this and that, because our citizens are paying for something and everybody's getting flack from all sides, and it's going to get worse. As Member Bonham said, the price has gone up. And the next board, we'll be talking about this next year or the year after that if I'm around, but these members are here for another year. Next year, they're going to be talking about it, and so will you. So.
Yeah, I mean, we on an annual basis we debrief the incident and talk about what went right, what went wrong, how we can improve things from a police response. As far as there's just so many issues that are tied to it, I don't have any suggestions that I can offer at this point in time.
Okay, and I'll go to Member Stewart, but in this case, everybody's right and everybody's wrong on this. Everybody's got a point, but I don't know if we're being constructive on what's being done here, but it'll just keep going. Member Stewart.
Just thank you, Chair, and through you to Chief. Just to a point that the Chair made there, that's you know, it is a provincial park. I understand that, and that's not likely going to change at all. But if OPP and the Ministry of Natural Resources were not involved, we would then have to change our role, because right now we only deal with outside of the park, and you know, in other words, our jurisdiction as a Niagara Regional Police Service. If it became, quote, ours, now we'd have to have a bigger expense, because we'd have to be able to have officers and everything inside the park to make sure that there's a safe environment going on. So I think it would only get worse, would it not? Because maybe because of your working with them, how many OPP and how many MNR people are there for the duration of the hunt? And how does their, quote, their cost compare to the cost of the NRP?
So I don't have that figure, but you are quite right in that if that property belongs to the province, and that's the reason why the OPP involvement. And if there was a homicide that occurred in that park, it's OPP jurisdiction. It's not our jurisdiction. So if that were to become property of the Niagara region, then it would become our responsibility. You're right. So, I mean, they have staff on scene the entire time. I would suspect that their costs are higher than what our costs are, because by and large, our involvement is at the entry and at the exit of the harvesters coming into and out of the park. So we're not there the entire day, but they are.
So that's a good point by Member Stewart. Their costs have to be a lot more than ours, I would suspect, but regards to that, it'd be nice to see that something's being planned to try and cut this down, and it might be just pie in the sky, but I know you're frustrated with it, and every officer is that goes there, because again, you're neither right nor wrong, but whatever we do, we come under criticism, and as a regional council, we get calls on this. I imagine Thorold Council or Pelham, whatever controls that park, is also getting the same, so I'll move on with that. Any other comments on the consent agenda items? Member Bonham, are you done? Any other comments? All those in favor? Carried. We don't have any present.
Chair,
yes.
just a question. That
yes.
report was something that was asked for at the time by Member Petrowski, who wanted to know the costs associated with the harvest. So is that something that you would like to see coming forward on an annual basis?
I
have
would,
that continue?
but Member Castleton?
I'll move to dismiss that request.
You don't want to have the cost? Is that what you're saying?
I don't need a special report for that cost. It can be included in the general expenditure ledger.
Okay. We have a mover on that motion. Member Castleton, seconded by Member Stewart. Any comments on that? Well, my only comment is, as long as we get the information and we can see what it's costing us, I'm fine with that. But I'm going to vote no on this, just because I feel that we're spending money on something that has to get solved down the way, and I'd like the public to know what I say wasting on this. But I'll open it to conversation on that. Member Stewart.
Well, I would say this is that, you know, we're quote picking on one annual event, and we want all the costs associated with that. So people will pull out the amount of time a sergeant spends at a meeting or whatever it is to do all of that. But we don't do that with all the other events in Niagara. We don't turn around and pull out, like, are we going to get a total breakdown of what the costs are because there's a festival in Port Colborne or a festival in St. Catharines or a festival in Niagara Falls? Every individual item, I'm not sure that it's really productive to break it out. We as a service have a responsibility for the public safety. And if you know there's an event going on where there's potentially some problems, the police need to prepare for it and be ready for it. That's what their job is, in my opinion. So to ask them to do this for this one particular event is doing nothing but highlighting the one event. And we don't do that for all the other events and all the other things that happen in Niagara to isolate all the individual costs. It's just part of the cost, I think, of being a police service and providing public safety to our community. And our job on this particular item is to make sure that that there's not a problem with the protesters, that it would be the same as if there's a union protest at Brock. We had one of those a while back. Well, police need to be aware and be involved in case something outbreaks and there's a real issue. Because if not, then the public turns around and says, well, where were the police? They knew this was going on, and yet they weren't even prepared. It's sort of like you can't win. So I just think that highlighting this one particular one is not productive. That's where I come from on saying I don't need an individual report on it. It's just part of what we do in the business of public safety in Niagara.
Anyone else have a comment on this? Member Bonham.
Yes, thank you, Chair Gale. While understanding the message from Member Stewart, my take on this would be that it's important that we highlight cost drivers that would be the exception as opposed to the norm. Each and every year we have concern brought to us, and I'm sure the regional councillors do, and I know all the mayors do, in Niagara Falls and St. Catharines, about student activism and the costs of parties, St. Patrick's Day and the rest of it, and for good reasons. That by highlighting them, it draws focus and brings people to the party to try to provide some resolution. Without noting it and without detailing it, how do we bring resolution? This, as noted by the chief, it's only been the last 5 years that those who've had treaty rights for perhaps hundreds of years have decided to enforce them. And I guess the fortunate position is, with regard to the deer hunt, is that there's good reason to do it in that there's a surplus of deer. But I don't know that if there was one deer in the provincial park, anybody would be in a position, including the federal government, to tell the Indigenous folks that they can't exercise their treaty rights. It would be a very interesting contest. But in any event, I think for this report and for others that note exceptional issues or demonstrations in the public and associated cost, for no other reason, it just enables us to draw some focus to it and perhaps pay some attention to it with regard to providing ongoing resolution to the matter. So my vote would not to be to delete the report. Thank you.
So, Member Castle, I'm going to make a comment. Do you want to be the last kick of it because you made the motion, or does it matter?
No, I'm fine
ahead.
to speak now if I
Go
could.
ahead.
You know, and I'm really not strong either way on this particular motion that I put forward, but simply to eliminate insult to injury. I mean, we're talking about the costs that are building up each year, and here we are adding additional costs by creating an individual report every year. So my motion is strictly based on let's not add insult to injury. Let's reduce the cost where we can.
Any other comments on this item? Okay, my comment is, and I appreciate this, and this is true democracy going on here, but I side with Member Bonham that this should come here because it's a problem report that's only been around for 5 years, and we're hoping to have it stop. The festivals we have in that are good news items that are a benefit to the community and we should be involved in. If the union example you used continued every year, I'd expect a cost coming here because we have to find ways to solve it. And we did have a problem with university, and we brought up expenses over the St. Patrick's Day party, I believe it was, or something last year. But this one here, it's got to go away. It's got to stop. And I think this is the only way. Even if it's only $500, here it's thousands, $5,000 or $6,000, $7,000. But I'm also afraid that this could escalate to another level in there, with weapons being involved in there to kill the deer and things like this. So my vote is against this, but I'm easy anyway as long as I know the service is talking to the OPP and trying to put a stop to this so that we're not expecting any violence or anything there. But every year we have accusations, it seems. Chief, would you like to comment on this?
I just want to clarify, your comment, I just want to clarify, we're not trying to put a stop to it. We're trying to work with our community partners and be the MNR, whether it be the OPP, whether it be the various, whether it's the Animal Alliance Group, whether it's the Haudenosaunee people. We're working with all of the parties and are trying to provide public safety to that event. It's not our decision as to whether or not the harvest continues, but if it continues, we'll deliver bias-free policing to that event and ensure the public safety.
Okay, so Deb is going to read the motion, please, Deb. Oh, Member Castle?
One more. Chair, I was simply trying to avoid some costs, but obviously there's some passion around this that's unrelated to costs. So in that, given that the case, I'm going to withdraw the motion.
Very good. I don't have to look at, to withdraw the seconder, so it's not on the floor anymore. Correct? Is that, okay. Okay, we'll move on then. All those in favor of the we're on the consent agenda items. Carried, thank you. So now we're into new business, item number 13, the NRPS 2019-2021 business plan. I'm hoping the end result of this, after talking to Deb and the services, that we defer this to a February committee meeting where we can all talk about this, but it's nice to have this much advance notice. I know last time we were in a rush to get the business plan done, and I was proud of that business plan, but regardless, I'll open it to comments right now. For the, Member Barrick, you have comments?
Thank you, Chair. This is for the business plan item. So, I guess just a couple of quick questions and then maybe some comments. I see the staff report in front of us is just kind of asking for direction on how to proceed. But I similarly to the last time we started talking about the business plan, I don't see any kind of update on how the current one has progressed or not. And so I know Dr. Divers prepared the report and had similar questions the previous time, and perhaps to you, Chair, and or the Chief. And I know this is just starting the process to have the discussion, and we can have it at committee. But I'm hoping, in terms of moving forward, this plan, I like the pathway that the organization is on currently. The board and senior executive command team, I think, have really hit its stride. In the Chief's comments earlier about a commitment to continuous improvement, commitment to community, and working with our stakeholders is bang on. So I like where we're going and what we've done. However, as it relates to the business plan, I'm still looking for kind of a checklist of things we have delivered on and maybe some areas where we need to continue improvement, et cetera.
So through you, Mr. Chair, there are certain benchmarks where we report, and I'm not sure where we are in terms of when that next report is. I'll confirm that through Dr. Divers. So the last time that we reported was in the fall. I'm not sure which month, and there will be a report, a status update as to where we're at, which should be coming for the next, either next month or the month after. This report was, I guess, to simply put it on your radar, that to get it, I guess, refer it to committee so that we can have those discussions and get the ball rolling for the next business plan.
That's great. Thanks for that. I pulled a couple of slides from the 2018 budget presentation just to highlight, again, looking at building on the successes of this board term and or this current business plan. So those are kind of the things I'm looking to highlight, is the successes, but then also the areas that we need continuous improvement on, et cetera. And you know, it's attributed to you, quite frankly, Chief, and your team. So those are the things I'm looking at. Like, for example, the authorized deployment since 1980, since about for 40 years, for the first time, we're changing the trend of the frontline officers. A percentage from 67% been declining in 1980 to 45% this year. We're reversing that trend for the first time. The collective agreement increases from 1998. It's sustainable now, and that's special thanks to Member Bonham. And the historical budget increases, right? It was over 30% a board term in 2003, down to just under 10% this term. So the way I see it is, you know, we're making the organization sustainable, not sustainable. So not through cutting or hollowing out services. In fact, by putting more resources to frontline services. And so there's a really good service delivery story in that. And I think a great opportunity to tell it is when we're reviewing our business plan and considering how to make adjustments for the next business plan. So I look forward to the discussion moving forward. And I know it's difficult sometimes for perhaps staff to beat their chest a little bit in terms of the successes, but certainly you have many of them. So let's not be shy to tell that story through this process. Thank you.
Member Casson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I know if I speak to the report itself, I'm not going to be able to refer it, so I'm not going to speak to the report, only to the process. And I'll ask that the report be referred to, and I understand it's just commencing the process, but have this report referred to the appropriate committee along with the success documents that were presented in the presentation, the budget presentation, and the results that are coming forward in the next meeting that the Chief referred to. So if I could ask that that be referred to the appropriate committee to make sure all that material gets there for use in preparing the 2019-2021 report.
Okay, so that would be for the February 8th committee. Can I have a seconder to that referral? Member Ganzel, Vice Chair Ganzel. No debate on it. All those in favor? Carried. Next, I'm going to move items 14 to 16 in block if I can. So can I have a mover and seconder for items 14 to 16? Member Bonham, Member Caslin. Comments or questions on any of those items? Member Ganzel.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. This is item number 14. This is the use of police service name and logo on business cards in coordination with the Canadian Centre for Child Protection, or C3P. Several questions on this one, Chief or Deputy. The cards or the names on the cards, are those for our service officers or are they for members of the public? That's my first question on that.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's for their members, I believe, not ours. That's why they want to use our logo on their cards to demonstrate a partnership that that they're working with us along with other police agencies.
Okay. So if you had a person who has one of these cards,
so I stand corrected. It will be our business cards, and it will be the two logos combined will be on the business cards to demonstrate the partnership.
oh, okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
So we had Constable John Smith, who would normally have a police service business card, with our logo to the, I think usually the left side, with the tartan. Then this logo would be on what available space would be, I'll say the right, just for talking purposes. So it's not for the civilian members of this outside agency, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you very much.
Pardon me.
Any other comments on those items? So I have a comment on that one, Chief, on item 14, just the control of it on every time someone applies. And I remember years ago when people used to call me at my company and said, I represent the Retired Firefighters Association or Retired OPP Officers Association. There might have been one person on there who used to be an OPP officer or firefighter. And do we have a control on this? It goes somewhat in what you're saying, but do we have a control, and do we keep track of these down the ways? Because when I was on a charity years ago, I'm going off too far. I just want to make sure that nobody's phoning up saying, I represent the Niagara Regional Police, can you donate to this?
So yes, the fact is we do have control. So if we were to receive information about a charity that was using our logo improperly, we would obviously follow through on that. But we do track the different organizations that have sought and have been given authority and approval to use the logo.
Thank you. So just by saying you track it is good enough for me, so I appreciate that. No other comments on these items? All those in favor of them? Carried. Now we have a couple supplemental agenda items. Item number 17, the HRIS scheduling solution of the 2018 capital budget. Capital project. Can I have a mover and seconder to put this on the floor, please? Member Caslin, Member Bonham. Now, item number 17 in the report is the recommendation of the service is to direct negotiation with Cronus on this. But I know Member Ganzel will have more knowledge on an item like this, but this is a supplemental, so I'll open this up to comments or questions. Chief, does anybody want to speak to this first, or should we just open it up to questions? Because it came in as supplemental, and usually on supplemental, there's not enough time to digest it from our board, let alone something like this. It's hard to digest in the first place.
So my understanding, and I apologize, I wasn't at the last committee meeting, but I understand it was discussed at length at the last committee meeting. So I would open it up to questions at this point, and if you feel you need more time to digest the report, obviously you can defer it, I guess.
Okay, I defer to Member Ganzel on this. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And the Chief is quite correct that our committee meeting in technology items at the early part of January, I think this came to us as a verbal discussion, and it was, we went through the, I mean, this piece of software has a major benefit for us from a scheduling perspective. So that's the good news story. You're again tied back to a system that we use for attendance. So you're, to some extent, you're tied into subsidiaries that they control, or being able to interface in the VAT is fairly limited. So what the report, from what I read here and our discussions we had 2 weeks ago, it concurs basically what the services was trying to do was to get a solution for this time management or attendance management system that would work for our existing time and attendance system. So I would certainly support this item going forward.
Member Bonham.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and through you. When I read this report and having attended the last meeting, I'm wondering if we have an 8.5 by 11 report that identifies exactly what the concerns were and what the solutions will be by employing this software. And my position is that while Kronos may be the most compatible, I don't know that we want to sacrifice improvements in planning and scheduling, et cetera, at the expense of having something that meshes well with our current software. I think we want to focus on what our shortcomings are, what the solutions are, and then whose software can provide the biggest bang for the buck. And that's not really the flavor I'm getting from the report, and I'm asking, and I think the board should be in possession of a report that says, here's the identifiable problems, here's the solutions that are could be provided by the various providers of software, and therefore the best bang for the buck is A, B, or C. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, as part of the capital budget process, there was a business case that was submitted outlining, I think, exactly what Member Bonham is looking for, and I think if that information could be redistributed to the board, I think it would outline our concerns in trying to be more efficient with regards to the scheduling of staff and again, having a better understanding of what staff is available on a particular day. You know, in the event that all of a sudden we get last-minute notice that there's a large-scale event that's being planned for Niagara and Niagara Falls, let's say, it would allow us much better understanding of who's available, who has court, who's on leave, who's on float, all of those things, which would, again, make us more efficient. So that's all outlined in that business case.
Thank you, Chief. Having read that report, I don't think there was the degree of definition in there that I think I might be looking for. I understand this is a sensitive issue. We don't want to hold it up and don't want to be a fly in the ointment, but at the end of the day, there were a number of issues that were identified in terms of information that could not be provided when we were in process of negotiations. And I haven't seen the address to those issues coming forward in the capital budget presentation, to be quite frank about it. So I think there needs to be a little more definition provided than the capital budget presentation that we experienced as to exactly and precisely what the issues are, what the solution is, and who can best provide it. And that to me, was not in the capital budget presentation. It was an overview to the effect that, well, we will get this. Well, exactly what is it that we're going to be getting? And I think we need to burrow down a little bit and get into the nitty-gritty of exactly what the deliverables will be. Thank you.
So as detailed in the report, option 2 may be what you're looking for there, Member Bonham, with regards to an RFI to determine specifically what options are available. If you prefer, we can provide that additional information, and that can come forward to the IT committee at the next, I believe it's February the 9th. 10th, 8th, sorry. So we can provide that additional information. We're at the board's discretion here.
So Member Bonham, before you are over, I'm going to Member Stewart. Do you want to make a motion on item number 2? Member Stewart will still have time to talk, but.
My motion would be to defer this until such time as we've had further discussion at the IT committee meeting in February.
Okay, well, you can't make that motion right now. I'm sure someone else will, so deferral. So I'll let Member Stewart talk right now first. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And through you, my understanding from the IT committee meeting was one of the issues we talked about there was the idea of the length of time. And if this is going to be a labor-saving, cost-saving device, let's not delay it and delay it and delay it and delay it, because then it just costs us more until we get there. And the other part of it was, since the Chronos system that we're currently using, and this is an additional software, integrated software piece with it, and this Chronos is what the region uses. And there was some questions about talking with the region of whether or not they were interested in partnering with this software, because they could use it for similar purposes. And rather than that, we started to set some timelines to say, okay, well, if they want to be involved with this, fine. If they don't want to be involved with it, and that's, I think, why we talked about, within 6 months, let's get something going on this, because the region may or may not be interested, or other parties such as that, and yet from the policing point of view, if it works for us, we could continue. So, I mean, I think there's going to be further discussion on that, and to Member Bonham's point, the whole issuance of a request for information of automated labor scheduling solutions, I think right in there as part of the motion says, okay, but bring us back 2 or 3 ideas to the table. From what we hear right now, one of the big issues we have to look at is compatibility with our current system of Chronos. So if some other company has it, you're going to have a totally separate software, and how is it going to integrate? We talked about that at the committee meeting as well. And again, parlaying on Member Ganzel's knowledge and experience of that kind of thing, it's going to be something that we really need to look at going forward. So I think the idea of other solutions is addressed already in number 2. If other solutions come forward, they're either less expensive or better. It doesn't have to be Chronos, but I think the process needs to get started, because it's going to take us, I think if I remember correctly from the meeting, that even if we got started on the process now, including negotiating with the region and talking about whether they want to be involved, talking about an RFP, getting it back, evaluating it, and whatever it is, we're going to be 6 or 7 months before we get it. And then there's the implementation and training time. And one of the issues was saying, can we get this in place for holiday picking time, which is be like in November, December time frame for 2018. Because if we miss that, then we get another whole year without getting the benefit. So I think my recollection of the discussion was really around that, to get this process going. So I'm supportive of those 3 recommendations. I think it addresses anything I have. So thank you for the chance to speak on it.
Go ahead, all out, because I'm looking, Member Bonham's looking for a deferral to February 8th committee meeting, and you won't be able to say anything once that comes. Go ahead.
I just want to comment on this, that in the confidential component of our agenda today, new business from the technology committee, which was the January 11th meeting, which was item number C2. there was a discussion to proceed as outlined in this board report with the items. Was moved by Member Stewart and seconded by Member Bonham. So, no, that's it. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, Member Bonham's looking for a deferral on this to February 8th where we get more information, if I'm reading him right.
Through you, Mr. Chair, can I just clarify?
Go ahead, Chief.
So I'm not sure that we're going to be able to provide the additional information specifically about the competitors, what there is to offer out there without issuing an RFI. So that it's probably not appropriate for us to be telephoning and reaching out to the various vendors in the interim. So I'm just wondering if that's the road you want to go down, is through an RFI, or if you wanted, there's a couple of recommendations that are there. So there's different opportunities. What we're trying to avoid, and our experience is no different than a lot of other companies, including the region, have experienced with regards to compatibility issues where you have a software and you want to add another software component to it, and then you need a third software that integrates it and allows those two to communicate, and then you have a problem. And then you have all three companies pointing at each other saying, the problem is here. No, the problem is there. So that's the goal of what we're trying to achieve through this is an integrated solution that allows us to be more efficient.
Thank you, Chief. So, Member Bonham, I'm turning to you because the Chief is recommending item number 2 to get this going with a request for information. And if you wish to make a motion on that, if not, I'll turn to one of these people for a deferral, or I'll see what they would like to do on this, because we'll have to have someone pick one of these so we can get going on this.
Just to clarify, I'm not necessarily recommending option number 2. I'm just saying if Member Bonham wants that additional information, then option 2 will provide that information.
And would you have that information by the February?
No.
That would be...
It will take some time to issue the RFI. Then vendors have time to respond to it. So again, as Member Stewart had pointed out, we were hoping to have a solution in place that would allow us for our 2019 leave picks to be able to benefit from the efficiencies and potential cost savings that would arise from that.
And the only way we can do that is if we went with option number 1. Is that correct?
Option 1 would certainly streamline the process. And again, with regards to option 3 and working with the region, we'll continue to work with the region. I know that EMS has expressed some interest in could use the software component as well. And if it means us piloting that on behalf of the region to see how effective it is and whether it meets our needs, we're happy to do that. So,
Member Bonham?
Yes, thank you, Chief, and through you, Chair. I don't have any concern with regard to proceeding with number 1, providing we don't get to the point of making a purchase. We do a preliminary as to what they're going to deliver. Page 3, the first paragraph in the first sentence in the third paragraph, taking into consideration the identified essential selection criteria. I think the board needs to understand what those identified selection criteria are. And I understand one of them through Member Gansell is we don't want to select a software that's not compatible and have a whole lot of issues. But I continue to emphasize, if we're going to spend $500,000, I think people need to understand clearly what we're going to get, what the benefits are, and what the solutions are going to be to the problems that we have. And if it's not going to deliver identifiable solutions to our current problems, then the best software in the world, to me, is not worth $500,000. Thank you.
Chief, so before you comment on that, I've got a motion by Member Bonham on item number 1, seconded by Member Gansell on number 1. Chief, do you have any comments on what he just said, or we'll go ahead with the motion?
You can go ahead with the motion.
All those in favor of item number 1? Carried. Thank you very much. So supplemental agenda item number 18, the 2017 and 18 PEM grant, NRPS interim reports. A mover and seconder on this one, please. Member Ganzel, Member Caslin. Comments on this? Again, it came in supplemental, so I don't know if you guys have all had as much time to read it because it's pretty thick. So, Chief, do you have any comments on this? Or does it just stand the way it is? Item number 18, the PEM grant interim reports.
Oh, that's a supplemental?
Yes.
No, it just stands as it is. I have no additional information.
Any comments on this? All those in favor? Carried. So that's it for public. Is that not correct? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm moving on too fast here. So the SIU reports coming into public, I would like to move in block the items C302 to C305, please. Can I have a mover and seconder on those four? Member Bonham, Member Stewart. Comments or questions on those items coming public? I see none. All those in favor? Am I done now? We're done with public now. We'll go into confidential. Thank you very much.